Hello, and welcome to Outside the Zeitgeist, an opinion podcast presented by Mook Media. Please be aware that the opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the host platform. Outside the Zeitgeist is funded by people like you, for some reason. And now, here are your hosts, Greg and Charles.
All right, welcome to Outside the Zeitgeist, episode 18. And I am your resident misanthrope, Charles.
I'm your resident skeptic, Greg.
And once again, we have Red with us. Say hello, Red.
Hello, darlings.
Cheers, Greg.
Cheers, Charles. Don't forget to dislike, share, comment, and subscribe. And dislike the video to show that the feeling is mutual.
Did you manage to memorize it?
Oh, yeah.
I don't believe you.
I changed the script around so it was more natural.
Oh, okay. I wasn't even paying attention.
Exactly.
Oh, well, that just goes to show you how much attention I pay to you.
You never pay attention.
Who are you again?
Exactly.
So, getting into the nightmare fuel. So we have more positive news, which I hate giving people positive news.
Whoa. Positive news is bad.
Yeah, well, it's
negative news is good.
It's bad for somebody else. So the first thing we got is that the SCOTUS made a unanimous decision, 9-0, in Caniglia versus Strom, which is you may or may not remember that we covered this case before. This is the case about the community caretaking and how it pertains to the home, where the cops decided, we're going to go in and take this guy's guns and blah, blah, blah. So 9-0, the Supreme Court said, no, community caretaking does not apply to the home.
That sounds really awesome.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the description to the SCOTUS proceedings. You can read the majority opinion, which was 4 pages, really only 2, written by Justice Thomas. And there was also there was also language in there that indicated that red flag laws may not be constitutional as they are. So
really, who'd have thought that?
I don't know. I mean, people with common sense, but we know those don't exist in the world.
That must be why everything seems to be going crazy.
What do you got, Red?
Well, what's interesting is that the court is doubling down on the view that the Second Amendment right to bear arms is an individual right, not a group right. Well, that's why one group cannot come in and swoop down to take individual guns on the basis of, the group interest.
Well, the focus on this case was more the Fourth Amendment than the Second Amendment.
Searches, unreasonable searches and seizures.
Right, and because there is the community caretaking standard for things like cars that the Supreme Court has put out before, but when it comes to the home, fuck you. You don't get to just walk into somebody's home. And again, this is positive and negative things.
Well, red flag laws are just crazy. As I understand, 3 jurisdictions in the U.S. have laws of that ilk, which pretty much amount to the local Yenta, the local Karen, saying, oh my God, I'm so concerned that person, oh my God, may have a gun and they're kind of shady. And that's sufficient basis for the police to come in and confiscate weapons. And then you have to go to state court to try to get your guns back at great expense with presumptions against you. That's insane. It's such an uneven table that I'm glad that Justice Thomas and the remainder of the court have said, no.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the thing that's amazing is this was a 9-0 decision.
Well, that's pretty resounding.
Yeah, and again, there was, if you read the text, which I will have again in the link to in the description, they specifically mentioned, well, it wasn't Thomas, but Thomas alluded to it, but I think it was Kavanaugh writing his opinion. He specifically mentioned about red flag laws and the constitutionality as they are. Moving on, we got YouTube, stuff with YouTube. Crowder, we talked about Crowder getting banned.
We did.
But
what?
Crowder's suing YouTube.
No, he's suing YouTube. He's suing Facebook. He's suing, I think, also Twitter at the same time. He's got a number of lawsuits underway, and I'm really excited about this.
So, one thing I've noticed about YouTube recently is that in the past week, like since we've done our last show, that I have seen a shitload more advertisements on YouTube. Like, I'll see an advertisement, and then it goes off, and then right away, advertisement in 5, 4, 3, and then after that advertisement, right away, advertisement in 5, 4.
Well, you know that YouTube said they could put advertisements wherever they want.
Yeah.
You know, they mentioned this months ago. It was only weeks after that happened that I thought I was going to start seeing more advertisements. And I did. I started seeing more advertisements, especially where they didn't deserve to be. You know, I'm listening to the middle of an album, and then suddenly in the middle of the one of the songs in the album, advertisement pops up, and I'm like, what the fuck? How am I supposed to listen to music that people have uploaded while you have advertisements in the middle of the song? At least Spotify waits until the end of a 20-minute song before they throw in 10 minutes of advertising.
What do you got, Red?
Well, it's a double driver, isn't it? Because at the same time, YouTube is trying to sell its subscriptions to the skip the ad. And I don't know, is it true that it seems to me that certain programming gets more advertising that is more disruptive than others? It seems to change by day to day. Very hard to detect whether there's a pattern. I wonder if that's confirmation bias messing with my perception. But definitely, YouTube has a financial interest in selling that, free trial, and we'd love to charge you month by month after that.
They've stepped up the amount of advertising. Every step forward that I've seen YouTube make is a step towards becoming TV. Because YouTube's ultimate goal is to be what TV was in the 90s and the 80s and such, is that they want to be the place you can go to watch television. Okay, now they're not going to call it television, they're going to call it,
streaming.
Yeah, whatever. They want to make it premium programming and such things. But their goal is to be a ad revenue, money-making machine. Because as it is, YouTube still doesn't make a profit. YouTube is still subsidized by Google. You know, there's still tons and tons of stuff that YouTube does that is just, they're giving away all this free storage space for all of their creators, and they're not charging them a single dime for it, which is amazing, but they also have no money coming in by comparison to how much money they are spending.
Yeah, I'll get to you in a second, Red. One thing about YouTube is, I've said before, I mean, YouTube's business model is horrible. I mean, you have there's other platforms like Odyssey, Rockfin, Utreon. I mean, we're not on those platforms as of right now. I would like to be on those platforms because why the fuck not? But the one platform that I've seen that shows to be the best is Odyssey, because Odyssey is they draw their revenue mainly from the person uploading the videos. Now the problem is that they're doing it with their own cryptocurrency, which is having trouble with the SEC right now. But then again, the SEC is pretty much a gangster organization for the banks.
I'm still on the fence about crypto.
What do you got, Red?
I forgot. I was listening to you saying, oh, yeah, well, part of the model is not just selling ad time. It's also collecting data on us watching the videos.
Well, I mean, that's all part of that.
So it feeds into the Google data machine. But, note that other aspects of the market is moving to subscription-based models. Think about Locals and BitChute and all these other subscription services.
The problem with YouTube financially is that their income model is twice removed from the actual process, whereas Odyssey is directly part of the process, and then other sites like I said, Rockfin and Utreon, they are kind of adjacent to the process. So, but even at the same time, with YouTube, I find I'm wondering what's going on with YouTube. You just had Biden undo Trump's anti-censorship executive order, but then at the same time, I've seen that Jason Bermas has had a strike removed from his channel for medical misinformation when all he was doing was playing a government hearing. Something we'll be playing a little bit later on, but it just makes me wonder what's going on, and because there's got to be an inflection point at some point. That's what it's looking like.
Well, what we're seeing forming is a battle of the business models, right? Which ones will be more profitable, more sustainable, and I think it has to do with the purpose of the channel, right? There will still be a space for like the generalized channel like YouTube, and it'll basically become a funnel to stream people towards the subscription-based models.
Yeah.
If you like what you see here on YouTube, go sign up on my whatever platform.
I still say give me a couple $100 million and I'll put them all to shame with a better business model. But moving on from that, apparently You want to take up a new hobby, Greg?
Oh, yes, yes. You know, I have a friend. He does knitting. I didn't know he doesn't do this kind of knitting yet, but he does knitting. He just does scarves and fun little things that he gives out to friends and such. But what I found most interesting as I was trolling through Instagram, and I do that maybe once a day just to see if anyone has anything worth looking at, is that apparently a company called Bitty Bug is selling for parents to get what is called a soft packer. It is a custom prosthetic packer in sizes appropriate for children, made from soft durable yarn and polyester filling. It is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. It's
The most
bring up that picture, please.
the most disturbing thing is that this provider is suggesting that parents pin this to their children's underwear. It's like, wait, what? You want me to what? And by the way, I was taking a look at these. First of all, I wasn't sure if I was looking at child porno, so I was like, oh, wait a minute. And it looked like some had foreheads, some didn't, in different colors. One was blue. It's like, I don't know, seems a little early for blue balls.
It's
I don't know. I had questions about the whole thing.
Constantly astounded by the stupidity and idiocy of humanity.
Yeah. So and especially when it comes to the whole virtue signaling thing, because apparently Marvel movies are banned in China now, and the reason why
It only took so long.
I know. Apparently, the reason why is that there's an actress that Disney hired because she's Chinese, and she was given an award. Let's see if I'm remembering the story straight. She was given an award, and in the process of getting the award, her little thank you speech involved saying how bad the CCP's actions were.
Atta
So
I
girl.
don't know how that came.
And
That's no good.
now Disney stock is plummeting and so forth. So I mean, it's like I've said before about the whole, we need to do this, that, and the other thing, and not pay attention, blah blah blah.
Their stock has been going downhill since last year. One, since they haven't had their park weren't allowed to be open.
Right.
Mulan.
Mulan.
Two, that.
Gina Carano.
Three, the whole controversy with
Gina Carano.
her, yes. Also with there's a lot of people that just stopped having a subscription to them.
Plus
to
the
their
wokified,
services.
plus the
Once,
leaked wokified training. That was another factor.
No, yeah.
No, that's a nail in the coffin there. I'm talking about there was with one of the Marvel properties, Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an episode that there's like statistics people can look at, and it says
Right.
at this point everyone just stop watching this episode because they thought it was going too woke or something to that effect. Which is, I think it's hilarious that Disney is getting due.
Yeah, well,
So at what point do the shareholders say, wait a minute, you're too caught up in preaching, get back to making money and making these properties viable present and future money makers?
Well, I mean,
look at what they did to Star Wars. Do you just,
the other question is how much of this is a calculated loss on the whole idea of wanting to force a narrative and a societal change?
Well, there is the possibility. That's that. There's also the possibility that the people who are in charge are so indoctrinated into these beliefs that they've replaced the sensible people who are just, because a business is all about making money. If you're not
Right.
making money, then your business is obviously not making the right decisions. Now, that might be a very simplistic and also cold way of looking at it, but in my experience, a business does not care about trivial things such as feelings.
Right.
They typically only care about if I do A and I do B and I do C, will it give me D, which equals more money.
Well, I mean, the business world hasn't followed really sound logic for decades. I mean, you have the Rockefeller model a lot, and you have the sellout model where things like Uber and YouTube and whatnot.
Hold on. That still follows my model, which is if I do action A and action B and action C, do I get to action D, which is profit?
Well, I mean for like as terms of longevity of the business.
Well, they don't care about that.
Not anymore.
The
They used
American
to.
business model has shifted from.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, but
Yeah.
it still is the end result is profit,
No.
at the
What
expense
I'm
of.
saying is the difference is profit now versus long term profit. It's like the whole YOLO culture got into the business world. What do you got, Red?
Well, 2 points. Point number one, it's not monolithic. There are a lot of people
Well,
trapped
true.
in these companies who are having a reaction of you want to do what? What's this training about? What? And there's an internal culture of, well, if I complain about this, is this going to damage my career? Am I going to be able to keep my job? So there's that internal conflict going on. Second, for a while, business schools have been preaching the message of that there's the economic mission of the for-profit enterprise and its social mission. And here, the two are conflicting. At what point will the shareholders say, wait a minute, hold it, what are you doing with my money? No, bullshit.
Well, I think I'm just putting some things together right now, and I'm thinking about the fact that I've been doing research into inflation and our current standard of fiat currency and all that.
Mm-hmm.
When did our long-term become short-term type goals? Was it before the 60s or after the 60s or the 40s and such? I'm just trying to think about
When do we ditch the gold standard?
In the 60s.
did
There you
businesses
go.
start focusing on short-term profits before or after the gold standard was thrown out the window?
I don't know. That'd be a good thing to look into.
Because I find if in our current state right now, money now is worth more than money later, unfortunately, even though it should be.
Well, that's been like that forever.
Yeah.
And that's what and I've talked about what the actual definition of inflation is. It's the adding more of something to the supply. So
That's what I'm saying. Is so were these practices? This is something I got to research. I'm just thinking about
Well,
were
I
these
mean-
practices started before or after we switched.
well, I
as a
mean,
global
it's
economy
been
to
spearheaded
fiat
by
currency.
the creation of the Federal Reserve, and that's basically what the Federal Reserve does. Is it creates all this money, gives it to the wealthy and the corporations, and inherently takes away wealth from the masses of people. What do you got, Rez?
It's a chicken and egg question.
Mhm.
So is inflation a way to cure the oversupply of dollars in the market? And or is it an effect of the oversupply of dollars in the market?
Well, I mean, that's
So-
what I was saying is that there's actually a specific definition to inflation, and inflation gets
There's no one
misused a
definition,
lot.
but that's one, certainly.
well when you're talking about the change in prices, right? That's an effect of inflation. It's
Now
not
you're
necessarily-
talking about the buying power of a dollar
Right.
versus the rate at which it trades against other currencies.
Right, but those don't have to do with the actual the actual definition of inflation.
I
The
just
actual
want to help clarify.
the actual definition of inflation is the increase in supply of something. To inflate, you inflate the supply of something, and the effects get called inflation, even though they're not inflation. They are effects of inflation.
Let's move on.
Yes. Arizona. What do you
So
got on
I have
Arizona?
been keeping track of this, and recently we found out that they were going to start the recount and all that. They started this past weekend. I didn't know it was that soon that they were starting to do this. And they've already discovered through 5 batches of 200 some odd votes apiece that there's already a discrepancy of 17.5%. Now, this is only amongst a small amount of votes that they've already discovered this. But I'm looking at these numbers and it says 200, 200, 200, 200, and 191. And then I'm looking at the actual counts, the physical documents that they had. And one of them is 218. One of them is 187. One of them is 199. Another one is 183. And it's like, wow, these are not 200 in any sense. Never a single one of them were they accurate. More importantly, the amount of overage on any one of them did not equal to the underage on any of the other ones.
Right.
So this just brings me back to my my thought process, which is there was a high amount of just suspicious activity that occurred in the past election. Nothing I can say definitively one way or
Oh
another.
no, there was no suspicious activity in the election. Biden was the properly elected president of the United States.
Thank you, Robot Charles.
And Biden is so great, he sent out a recent tweet to tell us how great our country is. What did that tweet say? Oh, let's see. The rule is simple. Get the doom spell. He didn't actually say doom spell. Get the doom spell or wear your personal waterboarding device. He didn't actually say personal waterboarding device. Until you do, The choice is yours. Now, some people are interpreting this as a threat. I wouldn't really go so far as to interpret that as a threat, but it is.
I don't know what.
It is an ultimatum, right? It is an
Sure.
authoritarian ultimatum, much like Hillary Clinton's tweet, which says, "You read
It's
this one."
pretty simple. Get vaccinated. Get your life back.
I mean, yeah, it's not so. It's not like we're living in a hostage situation at that point,
No. No, absolutely not. No.
It's a narrowing of options so that you don't have options.
You're
Whatever
either with
happened to
us
my
or you're
body,
with-
my choice. Wait a minute.
You're either with us or you're with the terrorists.
Well,
Sure.
I thought I could get an abortion
Yeah.
until the last moment. Wait a minute. This is going to really cramp my sex life.
Other interesting politicians. I don't know if any of our viewers have watched back a couple years Maduro pulling an empanada out of a drawer and eating it while his country is starving. Can't even afford a grain of rice, less than empanada. But I recently saw DeBlasio shilling for Shake Shack, and he's saying, if you get the vaccine, you'll be able to get fries. Oh, and there's a burger on the table too. And then he proceeds to eat the fries and take a bite of the burger. And I'm hearing this, and it's like, and then he goes on and on and on about, if you get the vaccine, you will get to go to Shake Shack and continue to get all this lovely, healthy food.
Yeah, I mean, I love how the statistics show that it's people that are like obese that are the ones that are actually dying from having the virus, and the whole idea is, oh, let's give people stuff that makes them obese.
When does Trader Joe's or Whole Foods come out and say, get the vaccine and we'll give you a bushel of broccoli, 3 tomatoes, we'll give you a nice fresh cut of chicken breast that you can grill up, pan fry, however you want to cook it at home. Where are the restaurants that are serving the vegan food, talking about, hey, if you get that vaccine, we'll give you this nice healthy meal to serve up with it.
So, speaking of New York stuff, so the New York City Gay Pride Parade, I can fucking talk. The New York City Gay Pride Parade decided they're going to ban police from participating. So,
Specifically gay police.
Yeah.
Since when do civilians get to say that?
Well, I mean, this is the Pride's, like, the
organizers.
Yeah, the organizers of the parade. So
Seriously.
and it's just like, what the fuck,
Vapid posturing.
Yeah, pretty much.
We are not about inclusion. Apparently we're about exclusion.
Well, I mean, that's
which
what we've always been.
Everything that's the complete opposite of everything that I've been told about the LGBTQAIQ plus movement.
But Gregory, diversity is about excluding everybody except those who believe like we do.
Yes,
Diversity
not
is
different thoughts, not
exclusion.
different ways of doing things.
Do I need to punch up my image again?
No. But I could do with a
What? Which one?
Debbie.
I don't enjoy hurting anybody. I don't like guns or bombs or electric chairs. But sometimes people just won't listen. And so I have to use persuasion.
I mean, that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. Well, speaking of bombs and whatnot, so got more information on what was going on between Israel and Palestine. So apparently there was some election that was going to go on in Palestine for their officials, but at the same time, Israel was doing a couple things. First off, they decided to block the Damascus gate for reasons.
Sure, why not?
That's what you do as an oppressive occupier. You do stuff for security reasons. But also there's this one region, I can't shake something or other. I can't remember what it is. So the whole thing is that Israel made a law that if you're Jewish and you have an old deed to this place, you can go there and say, get the property, and all of a sudden it's yours. And that was applying to this one region where, like, after the Jews were kicked out hundreds of years ago, a couple Jews went and bought this property and so forth. And there was this video going around where this woman was saying, "Why are you stealing my home?" And this guy was like, "Well, if I don't steal it, somebody else is going to steal it." So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure of the authenticity of that video, but apparently Israel has managed to do what most other people couldn't do, and that is unite the Middle East, because everybody fucking hates Israel right now. It's so bad that even Kotaku came out and did a piece.
You read that trash?
No, it came up because somebody else was complaining about it.
I stopped reading their stuff 5 years ago.
Well, they came out and did a piece saying, talking about Israel, like what Israel's been doing and so forth, and because the thing of the article, the other part of the gaming related part of the article was that
it's completely unimportant. Kotaku is video games and anime.
Shut up. I'm getting to that. Because the other part of the article was they were talking about how different people in the gaming industry were starting charities and whatnot and responding and how.
What the
yeah, so there's a lot of people like looking to raise money for the Palestinians, and they were in the gaming space. So I'm guessing that was the point of this article. It wasn't really done well, which is what you expect from a Kotaku article. But I mean, a lot of people are coming out, especially because apparently on social media, there's been these videos, and they keep getting deleted. But there's these videos of Israeli Jews, going around and forming these lynch gangs, hunting down the Arabs, the Palestinian Arabs, and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't know what to believe about that. I don't know what to believe about any of this. I heard about that. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily know if I do or don't believe it. I just feel like the media is trying to make me believe one point of view.
Well, I mean, you have so an interesting related thing was the Gray Zone. They put out a documentary yesterday or the day before, and it's about much of the recent history and the war. Was it 2014, the invasion by Israel? And when I went and looked for it today, it was gone. So luckily I managed to download it.
Excellent.
And
forward it to me.
Yeah, well, I'll just give it to you and whatnot. What do you got, Red?
Well, have the Palestinians, has Hamas, has Iran noticed that every time Israel gets attacked, Israel gets stronger? Every time Israel gets attacked, Israel's like, okay,
well,
we gotta hold on a second, let me finish the point before you interrupt me. That Israel says, okay, now that you've attacked, now we have to take a little bit more buffer zone. We have to fill this area with settlers because we need the security of protecting our sovereign border nations.
Well, I mean,
so, no nation has free reign to attack the other. And if you do, well, you get what you get for attacking.
Well, there's a couple of things with that. For one, it's illegal to put settlers into occupied territory according to international law.
Fuck international law. Everything's
seriously.
Everything is
international law is a misnomer. It's law by consent. Fuck you.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, just putting that out there.
Sure.
Yep.
Right.
And the response is fuck you.
Two, it's the same thing with Israel. Every time Israel's invaded, Gaza and whatnot, they keep failing one way or another. And when it comes to...
Are you serious? Israel could crush Gaza. It chooses not to do so.
I don't know.
It's like the worst genocide in the history of ever.
I mean, well, there's actually another one going on in Ethiopia that not many people are hearing about.
Can't hear about it. We're not allowed to hear about it.
I mean, Israel has the advantage of getting $3.8 billion from America every year to buy weapons, very accurate weapons, which somehow managed to still kill a bunch of children. But, and as far as the Arabs in Palestine are concerned, a lot of them don't agree with Hamas. They just support Hamas because Hamas is the only one fighting for them in their eyes.
That's what they think.
What's that?
That's what they think.
Right. Well, they're the ones there that are actually with the guns and everything defending them. Now, sure, Hamas doesn't have their ideals aren't aligned with much of the Arabs there, but it's that whole situation of well, you're not exactly my friend, but you're doing this for me, so I'll support you to that end, and
so
then we
the
can
enemy
deal
of
with
my enemy is my friend.
Yeah,
kind of bullshit.
something along those lines. But yeah, so that's more stuff on what's been going on in Israel. But another thing coming out of Israel is that there's an Israeli medical group that reported that the side effects from the different doom spells are getting underreported. I've been seeing these reports pop up all over the place. One report I read said that only 1% of all side effects are getting reported.
That's not explicitly COVID itself. That's actually 1% of all vaccines, period, are ever reported. Which is kind of sad.
Yeah, because Luckies are recommended by 9 out of 10 doctors. But you can test yourself for COVID.
Absolutely. The advertising is going through the roof. COVID testing, COVID vaccine, COVID everything. The pharmacy war is on. And they want you to buy your own COVID self-tests. It is the next big moneymaker for the pharma scene. Get COVID tests that you can do in the home right away. You need to meet up with groups of people. You want to do a barbecue? Get that test. Do it. Spend money.
I remember when had this take-home sleep apnea test, and it didn't really work well at all.
I'd be surprised if people were going to be able to use... they're probably not going to do the test right. I find most people just open stuff up, they don't read the instructions, and they fumble about on trying to figure out, oh, did I know how to do this correctly?
So, in addition with that...
we got stuff.
Now, this is something Jason Bermas didn't want to play, but I will play it, no problem, because I don't give a shit.
I don't give a shit either.
Hold on,
We're driving this bus until they take it down.
Yeah. So here we go. This is from the Texas State Committee on the Senate Committee on State Affairs. This is from a few days ago, I believe. Let's play this. Hopefully, we got good audio.
Introduce yourself and give us your testimony. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Richard Bartlett, and I understand we might have some physicians on the committee, and that's great. We've been talking for the last year, since January 1, 2020, about COVID, vaccinations, early therapeutic intervention, and we have basically, there's been a lack of information promoted on early outpatient treatment. The hospitals were overwhelmed. You remember that? We had hospital shifts. We had late care only. If people had COVID, they were told if you have mild to moderate.
All right, I'm going to lower this just for a little bit because he's going to talk about a few different things. And this actually goes on for a while. What's it called?
Back to them ventilators.
Yeah, well, he's talking about last year. But I'm going to put the link in the description. There's a lot more than what we're going to play here.
Finished the STOIC trial,
and
in the STOIC trial, they found that 90% of hospitalizations for COVID patients could be prevented with early, effective, with one medicine, inhaled budesonide. So I'm saying we have an alternative for Texans besides the vaccine. And Texans should have their rights. We should protect their individual rights. If they choose to go with early, effective outpatient.
So I'm just really focused on his
the
phone case.
The case. I mean, I can't stop looking at it. It's right there.
90% of ER visits, 90% of urgent care visits could be prevented, according to Oxford University, the oldest university in the English-speaking world since 1096. 72 Nobel Prize laureates. They're a reliable source of information. They also did a second randomized control trial, which is the gold standard for medical and scientific fact. That was the principal trial. And so both of them showed overwhelming success at helping people recover quickly, outpatient, early. It's a medicine that's safe, readily available, inexpensive, and it's FDA approved, as opposed to the COVID vaccines, which are not FDA approved and, by definition, experimental.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there.
This is great stuff, because
There's
what he just said right there is very key, because I keep hearing all of these advertisements about getting the vaccine saying they are safe, they are approved, and it's not approved,
right,
and it's not guaranteed to be safe.
It's a provisional approval under the Trump measures to roll out these experimental vaccines due to national emergency.
There's at least, in addition to the drug that he mentioned, there's also ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. That stuff was shown. I read reports that showed that if you treated someone early with it, it wouldn't do anything if the person was in the late stages, or even it seemed like in the middle of it. But if you got to the person early enough, when they first showed onset of the disease itself, and you gave them one of these things, vitamin D tablets, I think were also amongst the things
plus
listed. Zinc.
Yeah, zinc is a natural immunity enhancer.
And I've heard other countries using these to great effectiveness. All these things, if you give it to someone early enough, were shown to have good effect at possibly stymieing the disease before it ever got serious.
Now, there's a whole lot. I just want to point out there's a whole lot more to this, and if you want to learn about everything that's said, because another thing that gets talked about in here is the there's something I've talked about before, the idea of having a robust immune system, whereas if you take vaccines
You're relying on the bad immune system?
well, no, taking vaccines doesn't allow your immune system to develop naturally, and therefore it's operating off of a crutch. Whereas if you actually get infected by something and you overcome it, your body has a stronger resistance to not only that pathogen, but other pathogens as well, which is the stance that I've always taken on things like the coronavirus and many other things. I've just gotten to the point where I'm just going to lick bathroom doorknob. But
my method right now that I'm thinking about for the future when I have children, 6 years old, raise them to fight, toss them into the wild, let them survive in the wild, bring them back when they're a little bit older, and then when the Persians come to fight.
But so you can watch the rest of the video and decide things for yourself, which I know most of you won't do because you're lazy and stupid. But you still have people telling you to wear, well, there's a whole bunch of different things going on with the masks and everything, right?
Oh man, the mask is great. You see this, friends. You see this. This
frenemies
is apparently now no longer necessary. The CDC has now, the science has evolved, and now we don't need this if you're fully vaccinated. You're the outside.
The science hasn't evolved. It was just people were too stupid to pay attention.
Well, I don't know about that. I think they were just hiding the information from the public until they needed to have a positive week. Unfortunately, telling people to get rid of this has backfired because the people who believed the bullshit that they were feeding them are now against getting rid of them. They're so afraid.
Yeah, I've seen Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez and Rachel Maddow. And
Don't forget about David Hogg.
Yeah, and they're all like, "Oh, I don't know what to do."
It's so bad.
I
think I'm gonna start wearing it just so I can infiltrate them.
What do you got, Red?
Well, there's also the signaling aspect of the mask.
There's
a concern that if people walk around without masks, that others will perceive them as being Republican. So there's a worry, a perceptional worry. I may be signaling the wrong way type of effect.
They're idiots.
That's why I have my own little cloth mask, which does nothing because it masks do nothing, and white stenciled in a word on it, censor.
Oh, it doesn't have a middle finger?
No, I was
really should.
I was thinking about paying to have one and have it say personal waterboarding device.
I could get you a picture. I could get you a mask of that picture of mine that has a middle finger. You could wear that.
I could.
You could wear that. This just tells me, though, that TV doctors are not to be trusted. Even if they're real doctors, they still shouldn't be trusted. So if you see a doctor on TV saying something...
Like Dr. Faucett?
Yes, not only Dr. Faucett, but the director of the CDC, who I assume has some sort of medical degree. If you saw Dr. Faucett and what were the three organizations?
The NIH, the CDC, and the
FDA. Yes. Apparently they have all had access to getting the vaccine since the beginning of January. They were amongst the first to get access to it. And still, the heads of these organizations say that they have 40 to 50% of their people fully vaccinated. The FDA remained silent on this, saying that they could not disclose information as it would violate HIPAA and such things.
I don't buy that because
I don't buy it either. But
so apparently Walmart is not going to not be requiring masks in it anymore.
Trader Joe's, I'm excited about that
one. And I'm not excited or either
also
way. But now I'm going to go out on my really far off limb here and just say that by the beginning of July that this is just not going to be a thing anymore. For no reason whatsoever. There's no reasoning behind that at all. I guarantee you. It's not like that there's something I'm not telling you about.
Don't forget about the reoccurring September-October seasonal mask that we're going to have. By the time we get to the summer, absolutely, and everybody will be wearing no mask, except for the people who have PTSD because of this.
People are tired of this.
I've been tired of it since before it even began.
People are tired of this.
But the vaccines. What was that? What's that line? What's that commandment? Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Well,
Right.
apparently, if it's a vaccine, that can be the god that comes before you, because on Cristo Retendor, there is a display of vaccines saves right on the statue.
Look, I'm just going to say it. I have to say it before someone else says it. White people everywhere are curling in their graves because the first greatest white guy ever, Jesus himself,
Who wasn't really white.
no, now is advocating for vaccines. There, oh my God,
Yeah, I mean,
he is the downfall of the white civilization.
now in all fairness, the Cristo Retendor has had images displayed on it before.
Oh, I'm sure it has.
As you can see, this image right here, right, and this stuff right here. So I mean, but in the reason why I point this one out is because of the whole idea of what's it called? Where the science is supposed to be our new religion, and
Because science.
yeah, so this is the, and it could be some of these other. I haven't looked into all these other cases and whatnot, but yeah, the vaccines are what saves. Unless, of course, you're an anti-vaxxer, which there's been another finagling of the dictionary, because, of course, there has. So, Merriam-Webster, definition of an anti-vaxxer: person who opposes vaccination or laws that mandate vaccination.
I know we brought this up last time.
We wanted to bring this up. You skipped over it.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, you did.
That's a real shame.
So, this whole anti-vaxxer thing, it's what's it called? It's another one of those things where they lump in people that, as for myself, I'm not totally against vaccinations, but it's even if you question what's going on,
Well,
you get designated as an anti-vaxxer. and
Don't
whatnot.
ask questions. Do
Right?
as you're told.
It's like the whole 9/11 truth, movement. You're a truther. Oh my God, I'm somebody that wants the truth. That's a bad thing.
What I don't understand is why the Blue Anon people haven't bought into what the CDC is saying now.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying
Well, YouTube
we're all
won't.
good.
YouTube won't allow it to be shown. A lot of these sites won't. Social media sites won't allow it to be shown because YouTube wants you dead, Facebook wants you dead, Twitter wants you dead. All this, it's the same thing.
No. They don't want you dead. They just want you drugged up and handing over your money
No,
to them.
you kill you. Whoever doesn't obey, you have them killed off. That's how it's always
They
been.
just want your money. Your money. They don't give a shit about you. They don't even give a shit about these laws that they're even advocating for. It just seems more profitable to say this over that.
But
I highly doubt that they actually give a shit about any of this.
well,
They've
on the
shown me
surfaces,
they don't
no,
give a shit
they
about
don't.
this.
But at the same time, too, right? It's so like let's say we're having the quote unquote return to normalcy, right? All this past year has shown is that
Did we ever leave it?
well,
I mean, I
what
think
is normal?
normalcy is chaos. We've been there 24/7. We just dialed it up a little bit.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can talk about what's normal and what's not, but the idea is that what this past year has shown is that the entire world is in the grip of those few that want to push a specific narrative.
I think I learned something very great this past year, and that if I wanted to ever do sales, I should really be more aggressive, more confident in how I speak about things, because people
yeah.
are just very gullible.
Yeah,
and
people
they
are-
will eat up anything that sounds awesome, but has no proof behind it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can say the most ridiculous thing as long as you sound confident in what you're saying. Most people will just eat it up because people are fucking stupid.
Confidence man.
I mean, yeah.
Isn't that got a con man?
I mean, that's what politicians and everything. People go for whoever sounds the most confident.
Sure.
It doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. Oh, he sounds confident or she sounds confident. Blah blah blah. Right? What do
People-
most women go after? Men with confidence. What do you got, Red?
People go for whatever will confirm their view of the world,
That too.
whatever
That's a
that
shame.
happens to be.
That's a
So
real shame.
confidence is part of it, but it's also, are you validating their view of the world? Are
Well,
you
the whole
validating-
confidence, and that too, it goes back to the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? The
Yep.
whole idea of oh, this is obviously stable because either it's something I already believe in, or two, the person sounds confident, so that feeds the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is, okay, this is automatically something I can rely on because of simplistic ideas.
Well, I know less, therefore I'm more confident, and I'm more swayed by a confident-sounding view that just so happens to reinforce the way that I view things.
Yep.
Like, we're just living a Mandela effect.
But but one thing there's not a whole lot of confidence in is whether or not aliens exist, right? Which is the topic of our episode today. Aliens, not the ones that cross the border, unless you're talking about the border of the heliosphere.
Well, aliens do exist, or they don't exist. I'm not really certain. All I know is I like the idea of aliens.
Well, I mean, if we live in an infinite universe, then by that definition, then there must be other sentient species out there.
Notice that is a conditional statement. If we live in a infinite universe, what if indeed it is a simulation? And a simulation with code restrictions.
So,
well, I mean, that's not much different from reality too. So you'd never be able to. That becomes the whole Schrödinger paradigm.
I have been fascinated with aliens since my youth.
Well, let me finish what I was going to say.
Sure.
If we live in a finite universe based on models of planets and everything, I would estimate that it's probably like, I don't know, a 10,000 to 1 that we are the only sentient species that exists in the universe.
Because why?
It's pretty low odds.
Yeah, it's based off the average number of planets and planetoids per star.
Oh, that formula?
I think we have a pretty good chance then that there are aliens.
And what's it called? The ratio of planets that can actually support carbon-based
there's a formula
life and so
for that.
forth. Yeah. I sat down and did it one day, and it took like a few hours just calculating it all out, and I'm pretty sure it was a few hours.
It's built on a lot of assumptions, some metrics, but also some range assumptions.
Well, it's not a definite; it's a statistical probability. That's what I'm saying.
I agree. I think it's a statistical probability that eventually another alien species...
Dubious.
Everything is a statistical probability until it happens.
I'm dubious.
Or doesn't happen.
It's still a statistical probability.
Well, no, because the statistical probabilities, you're looking on things that may or may not be. So everything
what is the instead of it being a statistical probability, what would it be if it a statistical...
Well, it's either a statistical probability of occurring, or it's an occurrence, or an absence of occurrence.
Okay, so it's always a statistical probability.
Until it happens or doesn't happen, yeah.
No, if it does happen, then it's...
Well, no, because, like, I can say there's a statistical probability of me dropping this glass that it'll break. And then I drop the glass and either it breaks or it doesn't break. At that point that the glass hits the table or the floor or whatever, the statistical probability ceases because the event has occurred. Does that explain it to you?
Yes, but there's still the chance in the future that it could occur again.
That's in the future. That is another instance. Therefore, another statistical probability.
Which makes my original statement correct, is that it is always a statistical probability.
Based on the conditions.
I'm making a very general statement that there is always going to be a statistical probability of it occurring. And that, by definition of saying that, it is always a statistical probability.
It's a statistical probability as it travels through time. In a given moment, that's a different consideration. But I'm dubious of the whole premise to start, because I really think about this simulation hypothesis floating out there. It's very capturing of the mind.
Yeah, it's you have movies like The Matrix and whatnot, which we were talking about on last week's ATE. Right, the whole idea of what if we are living in a simulation and whatnot, which is possible.
It's possible.
I mean, we never know. And
what's the greater possibility? Matrix simulation, or the likelihood that indeed we're living in the actual reality of the universe and that it's infinite, and therefore there's a probability.
Find the actual probability for that.
I think we need people who are far smarter than we are to kind of look into that, noodle into it.
Who have more time than us to sit around doing nothing.
The deeper question is how much would it actually matter if we were or not? I mean, would it change anything if we were? Would it change anything if we weren't?
Who knows? I don't know.
Right.
Which kind of raises the question that science is greatly impoverished with an absence of philosophy, right? The two fields have been separated greatly to the detriment of both.
Well,
we really do need philosophy
depends on what
to
spheres
help
you're
guide how to apply
circling
the
in.
scientific method, right?
Depends on what spheres you're circling in, because the science, because a lot of people kind of conflate like science with the perspective of what the science is, and the reality is that we don't know all the science. We just know experiments that
science.
Well, we know what we've been able to reproduce, and we know what's reliably reproducible. But as we find these little inconsistencies and errors and whatnot, that allows us to discover the science behind everything.
So I have a question for the two of you.
I have an answer.
First, do you think aliens are real?
In what sense?
As in, okay, from a broad statement,
Mhm.
do you believe
Do I believe that there are
sentient life forms outside of planet Earth?
Like I
Just a
said, it's
very broad
possible.
statement.
You're looking at a 10,001 from my estimate of us being the
Okay,
only.
so that means it's a pretty good chance that they do exist.
Yeah, pretty good
okay,
chance.
Red?
My mind is open to being persuaded. I'm inclined more to the simulation hypothesis, but
Why?
my mind is open because why hasn't it happened already? Or
Well-
have we not noticed? Again, my mind is open.
Well,
Okay,
how does
so-
that pertain to other sentient forms, though?
Well, if it's a simulation, presumably a sentient form of some type has created our the simulation in which we inhabit.
Okay, but what about another sentient form within this supposed simulation?
It could be one of the makers, one of the creators who is inhabiting a personality or a recurring personality or force in the simulation.
You're
So
telling
sure,
me
why
the
not?
alien is a GM?
Yeah, sort of.
Well, I mean, there is Zuckerberg.
Oh.
Oh God. No, I'm
he
hoping
was
that it's
a
Elon
tornado.
Musk.
Oh, is he?
Truthfully, I'm hoping it's Musk.
Okay, so that's the first question. Second question is, based upon your response, do you think there's a possibility that we have already been visited?
I mean, if it's possible. If there is the things about the physical universe that we haven't discovered yet. I mean, right now, as it is, as we understand the universe, the speed of light, which, albeit a relative thing, is the limiting factor on all travel. We talk about wormholes
In this
and whatnot.
dimension.
Wait, it's a
Well-
limiting factor on. So I have looked into a number of things. I was recently watching one of the guys that talks about actual science versus aliens, because I watch
Right.
people that talk about actual science, and then I watch people that talk about interesting thoughts relating to occurrences in the skies and such things like that. And one of the guys was talking about how they could actually create FTL travel and how close we were actually getting to it. And there was apparently a study that came out, or a peer-reviewed article, I think, that came out that proved that we could do faster than light travel. And I think there's been one or two of them that have come out, but they revolved around creating a bubble in space.
Right. This was discovered by a Mexican physicist. He was able to actually calculate how to create what's equivalent to the Star Trek warp bubble.
Sure.
And what it does is it kind of like bends space around it.
It makes it so that you're in a very simple form. You're traveling through space without the friction to a degree. And the problem they're having with because the calculations are correct, but it's the massive amount of energy that you need to put into
Yes,
it
you need a
before you can get
shitload
to
of
it.
energy.
And then the second problem they had was, well, once you're in there, since you're not affecting the space itself, how would you slow down or get out of the space without?
You're creating something where relativism has you're lessening the effect of relativism on the physical aspects of the universe. So that creates a whole bunch of problems for like navigation and traversing and whatnot. In addition to what you said, like the whole energy requirements.
Right. So I'm very positive that eventually, maybe not in our lifetimes or even the next few lifetimes, but by the time we hit the year maybe 2300 or 2400, which is It seems to be when Star Trek and all those other things.
What was it? The 22nd? No, 20.
I thought it was the 23rd.
No, with Cochrane. When he did.
He might have been the 22nd century.
Yeah, I think it was the 22nd century after like there was all these wars that basically ravaged all of Earth.
Right. And then he does it in the Vulcans visit him and all that.
And then when the Vulcans land, they all get shot and killed, and their technology gets stolen, and there you have the birth of the Terran Empire.
But
for those of you that have seen that episode of Enterprise,
good stuff. But so I'm having positive thoughts that in the future, the far future, that eventually we will as a species get there.
Yeah, I mean, see, the whole thing is, and we had this when we were talking about the Neil deGrasse Tyson versus whatever the fuck store that was. That the science it is there, and it's how it is. However, we don't know what the science is. And, you're talking about, like, the calculations being correct. Well, there's still that whole error, that margin of error. You have the tub of failure, as some people refer to it, where the things you don't foreshadow, or just the simple randomness of science, and therefore by proxy human behavior, causes things that don't work as they're intended to, and so you have to go through the error trials and so forth.
The one thing that keeps me positive is I think back to
HIV positive.
What?
HIV positive?
No, no. I leave that to other people. The one thing that keeps me thinking about this is something that will eventually occur, is the fact that in the last decade, not even the last decade, we proved Albert Einstein's thing about gravitational waves.
Right.
Okay, and it was completely theoretical. He had the math that proved that it should exist.
Mm-hmm.
We just never had detected it.
Right.
But then they did detect it, and then they detected it again to show that it was not a false positive, because they'd had false positives before.
Right.
But so that alone makes me believe that we can do astounding things. We can come up with.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we have people so brilliant that they are so far ahead that they'll get us the math, but we won't have the ability to catch up to it yet.
And I think about how stupid our society has become in general, and you're just not going to see people like Einstein or Tesla or
That's
anything
not
like
true.
that.
Look at Elon, my boyfriend.
Oh, but Elon, he's not.
I don't even think Elon's that smart.
He's not that smart.
I think Elon has a keen mind for business and for marketing.
I mean, he's having trouble putting rockets in the space, which is something that's already been done by NASA before. We have better technology because we're now. It's different now because the way that rockets worked before, right, is you had a cone that had a definite shape.
Sure.
Right? It had a shape that was stable.
It was aerodynamic, right?
Yes and no, because the way it works is as the thrust of the flame exhaust pushes against the rocket, you have this specifically designed cone. Well, as you get up in the upper atmosphere, the pressure lowers, so that what's it called? That thrust plume widens because there's less things pressing against it. So you need the cone to widen at the same time, which is technology we didn't have when we went to the moon and whatnot.
Just goes to show you brute force works every time.
So you need the cone. You need the cone to widen so you can maximize the push on the craft. And then you have also the problem where once you get up to high, because of the rotation of the Earth, you need gyroscopy to keep the thing pointing the right way. Otherwise, it'll flip and invert and start shooting right down to the ground, like it did in that one video,
Sure.
that one rocket crash recently. But so realistically, there is new technology that has to be worked out. The kinks has to be worked out, and also, much like I'm having a fucking problem with my 3D printer right now, the more you add shit, it's still not working. Tried fixing it again. Tried.
You'll get there, man.
Yeah,
I know you're gonna get there.
I think the main board needs to be swapped out. But what's it called? The more you add to anything, the more points of failure you're creating.
Well, that's why I always talk about well, not to be off topic.
Right, and this is why polyamorous relationships never work, because you're adding more points of failure.
Sure. So, somewhat off topic, but if you look at IKEA stuff, because there's so many different parts, even though they're made of shitty materials, those shitty materials are, in some cases, pretty strong, provided they're in the right conditions. You know, if you get them wet, don't think about using them. But they're strong. It's just there's so many connecting pieces. So because of that, you put pressure on the wrong spot and it'll break very easily. But
like my heart.
So it's the
Oh, wait, I don't have a
construction
heart.
that's strong rather than the elements.
Well, it's the elements.
no, the elements are strong, but the way it's constructed is poor.
Right.
Right, because if you
Because
build most IKEA
Not
stuff,
poor, just more vulnerable because of all the failure points that are built in.
Right.
I call that poor. But visitors from space, I've been watching a lot of videos, and there was one that made I think national news. Did you hear about the sphere that
Yeah,
went
I heard
into
about
water?
the sphere.
And I don't know what to think about it, other than that it's interesting that they released it.
Well, I mean, so there's a few things, right? So one thing is like people talk about like satellite photos and getting
Right.
edited. People don't realize that NASA has to have many people that look at the satellite photos have to have top secret clearance because they have to edit out all the government spy satellites
Sure.
that exist and whatnot.
I'm
People
sure
will say
there's
they're editing out aliens, but that's not necessarily the case. You know, when we talk about like other things, we also don't know how many of this stuff is actually Terran experiments that are based off science that people don't know about because there's a lot of scientific research going on. You know, like even thought control. We know there's scientific research going on in that because of MK Ultra and whatnot. You know,
That's
declassified.
existed.
What's that?
It's existed.
Yeah, that's existed. So we don't know what is going on in the world of science. What's up?
Well, two notes. There is so much black budget money out there. I bet we wouldn't even believe what has already been created, at least in conceptual test form. But second, we all have phones, pretty good cameras on these phones, and yet all of these pictures are that fuzzy. Everybody takes crappy pictures
Yes.
of these asserted alien ships. What's with that?
I don't know. I know that
People don't know how to take pictures.
in my youth, when I was at my
Nah.
cousin's in Maryland, if anyone knows what the classic alien UFO stereotype, which is a round disc shaped saucer with lights going around, bloop, 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 you know, just like that. When I was at my cousin's years ago, which made me believe that there was stuff that we as a public are not aware of, is I saw a saucer-like thing with exactly that type of formation going around in the circular. Now, I didn't know what to think of it at the time, and when I looked,
Where did you see it?
it was in Maryland.
Duh. Did you see it in the sky?
Yes,
Did you
I saw
see
it in the sky. It was very high up in the sky.
Very
Now,
high
it
up,
could have
as
been- it
opposed to
could have been-
horizon.
It could have been a type of airship I didn't know about. It could have been anything.
Were you in the vicinity of swamp gas?
No.
Okay.
I was in the vicinity of a trampoline.
He was in the vicinity of his
So
own gas.
concussion was a possibility.
Possibly, but I didn't fall that
You
day.
know,
and I never got
actually,
on
Okay.
the trampoline.
Okay,
Actually-
just going through the possibilities.
When I was driving home one day, and I actually caught it on my dash cam, I saw something like flying through the air, and all of a sudden just burst into flames, and I was like, is that a meteorite or something like that? And
That's interesting.
I couldn't find anything on the
Spontaneous
news.
combustion of an
There's a number
bird.
of things I've seen that I just don't know what to think of it. They're probably airplanes. Like one time I saw something metallic in the sky, but it didn't have the blinking lights, and it was really high up, and I'm like, that's probably just a satellite.
Or a spy plane.
Or a spy plane or something like that. But what I like trolling through are the pictures that the alien people bring up about Mars, and it's great stuff. They always have such great things. Like a couple years back, everyone knows the face of Mars, right?
Speaking of Mars, I heard a joke recently.
What is?
There was a cat living on Mars, and the scientists discovered there was cats living on Mars, and they discovered it by the fact that the cat was dead, and so they tried to figure it out what killed the cat, and eventually they realized it was curiosity.
I thought you were going to take a Lovecraftian direction with that, but never mind.
That's great. That's probably the most clever joke you've ever said, which is sad. But
I know.
I've seen.
I don't like clever jokes.
There's a lot of rock formations, and that I've seen on Mars that are just they're really it's like interesting that they took the photo in such a way that the rock formation does look like something.
I think that has more to do with the way that our brains work rather than what's actually
absolutely.
there.
It does.
So
what I'm saying is that it's the fact that these rock formations were shot in such an angle that that there's so many of them.
Yeah, like the picture you're showing on your phone right now.
Right. So that's one of them.
It looks like something that was a rock that just kind of cracked because of some weather conditions.
There is also some of the stuff I've seen, which is so Mars base.
Well, let me speak to this a little
go.
bit because now and this is the human psychology aspect of it. Now, one thing that has been hypothesized about, well, possibly even theorized about the development of the human brain is that the human brain, when it was early stages of development, came into a state of psychosis, and it's just something that we as a species have never really overcome. And part of psychosis, and the reason why I'm talking about this is because this is what I went through, is that you're trying to find, well, I don't know if it's really psychosis. I don't know if I want to say that. But the part of the human experience is to try and determine the logic and reasoning behind things. That's how we make our progression towards stability. And that can sometimes involve putting meaning to things that don't actually inherently have a meaning, which
it's all
is
about our pattern making.
Well, yeah, trying to find a pattern, right? Trying to find a pattern, because if you find a pattern, you find security, and this is why
Imposing a pattern for your own reasons rather than discovering one that is already there.
Right. See, that's
how do you tell the difference? Is that the definition of sanity versus insanity?
Right. Yeah, that's where psychosis, because that's when I was dealing with my psychosis, that was the kind of thing I was doing. I was assigning meanings to things that didn't inherently have meaning because it suited the desires of my psychosis. But this is something you see when it comes to like religion and whatnot, and even things like aliens and whatnot, because many people, and as I've said before, we've been bred throughout our history to have a need to believe in things without actually there being
Have we been bred into that, or is that a need that emerged from us? Beholding a lightning storm and not understanding what fire is.
That's a chicken and egg thing, right? Because
that's the question, right?
Because initially somebody has a need to believe in something, and then when other people don't have that same need, they get killed off because that's the religious what's it called? What?
Zeitgeist?
I'm just looking at the things that people keep saying are alien stuff and everything. The whole thing is amusing, and also it's an intriguing thought experiment in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at this stuff, there's some things that I find very questionable because
I find you very questionable, Greg.
Well, you should.
Yeah.
There's some that seem undeniably.
I don't find Red questionable at all. I just believe it. I believe in Red. Period. Finish. Even though that she's not on the screen.
How do you know that I'm really here?
I was just about to say the same thing, Red.
I'm
a fiction. I'm a figment of your wishful thinking.
I mean, obviously you are, because I was just gonna say that question, which obviously means that you're real, because you're not.
There was a specific one I
What?
wanted to bring up.
Exactly.
There was a really good picture I saw.
Oh, did I see Grignac?
Grignac? I don't know. What
Can we talk about Bigfoot? Those pictures are equally bad.
Or how about the Loch Ness Monster?
Ditto.
This was one of the ones that I saw. So this is a picture that the viewers can't see this, but you can see the shape. The fact that it's reflective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that tells me that there's a lot of metal, because Mars is iron rich, right?
Yeah,
and I highly suspect that a lot of the things that the conspiracy theorists latch onto is simply that there's just things of iron, caches of iron that are just exposed.
It's the recognition of shapes as well.
Right. So they often find very interesting shapes. There's a couple things I've seen that make on Earth that these people have come across that make me think, okay, there's definitely something going on. It's probably a government thing, or it might be something completely different. But I find a lot of the time.
And now for something completely different.
You know that one too. my friends from Hofstra know that one. They anytime someone says it, they do that. But it's quite annoying and funny at the same time. But so I see them always bring up pictures, right? And I always think to myself, are these pictures the scale they say are?
Mm-hmm.
The actual size and scale that they say it is?
Right. That's the thing with the Loch Ness Monster, because you could tell if you know about photography, you could tell that original photograph was zoomed in a lot.
Maybe it was a duck. Ducks have long necks and have little humps on there.
Yeah. And they have corkscrew penises.
Messy rapists.
But I personally do believe that there are aliens out there somewhere. I just don't know if we've been visited by them. I think Moa, you know the what was it, asteroid or meteorite or whatever.
Right.
What's the difference between those again?
What's the difference between asteroid and meteorite? I think it's size. Well, I think asteroid is something that floats in space. Meteorite is when it comes in contact with the planet.
So there was the interstellar object that came into our system and is still, I think, in the system. It hasn't left the system yet.
Right.
But it was long and cylindrical shaped and made of mostly metal, apparently, because it was highly reflective.
Yeah, but if it's, I mean, the cylindrical shape is something just that could happen just because of it getting close to a star.
Well, it could be that. It could also, I mean, if you're a high-moving object, what's going to be easier to move at high speeds through space? Long and cylindrical.
Well, I mean, the frictional aspect through space doesn't have, I mean, unless you're talking about solar winds, which is closer when you're, is more pertinent when you're getting closer to the star.
Well, there's still stellar dust and there's all this
True.
stuff that's in space, and you have to assume, just like with a rock, that has water flowing over it. Over time, if something is moving at high speeds, it's going to be chipped away at, regardless.
Yeah.
Okay, even though people say the space is filled with a lot of nothing, there's still
No, it's filled with
crap.
tons of stuff.
There's still crap up there that that would damage something over time.
Dust, debris.
And if something's moving at high
photons
speeds,
all over the
also
place, dark matter.
the least
Gases.
stable particles on it are going to eventually fall off as something travels.
Yeah, and metals tend to stick together because of their composition and whatnot.
Have you heard of Tabitha Star?
Maybe.
So a couple years back, they came across this star that they'd been observing for quite some time, where the star's light output had decreased substantially over time. Tabby Star, just look up Tabby Star. I think they eventually figured out a plausible explanation for why the irregular changes in brightness could occur. It's nothing proven, but they had some very interesting explanations that people came up with. So one of the ones was the full-blown, off-the-charts alien type thing, which is that this is an example of a
Dyson sphere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Which is it's a very interesting concept, and I think that obviously our civilization is very far from ever getting to that.
The amount of resources you would need to build a Dyson sphere, you're talking about like
massive.
You're talking about like 20 Earths at least.
But yes, the size,
I mean, where the fuck would you get all that material?
Other solar systems, you would mine them.
I mean, even if you wanted to build a stable ring around the star. No one ever said a
Dyson sphere was a reasonable thing to do.
I mean, even if you just wanted to build a ring, you'd still need a couple planets worth. But just off the top of my head, the
towards what functionality?
Well, the whole point of a Dyson sphere is to capture all of the radiated photons from the star, so that you can use the heat energy. You can use it in
That's a rather extreme energy capture.
Right.
Towards what functionality?
You wouldn't even use it on your home system, I think, because if you were to do it on your home system, that would have much greater effects on the actual planet itself, because you'd be stopping the planet.
Right.
You're actually getting.
You would kill off your home planet.
Yes. So.
But it depends on how you build the Dyson sphere as well. But the idea is because you have the photovoltaic energy. Depends on how you build this Dyson sphere. But you have two ways of capturing energy. You have the photovoltaic energy, and you have the heat energy, which you can do in conjunction, because even the transfer of energy through photovoltaic means generates heat. And so you have the heat side, the heat source side, which is the star side, and the heat sink side, which is the space side, and all that kind of fun stuff.
You're talking about all these things that our viewers don't care about.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe some do.
Maybe,
but as far as Tabby Star, I mean, things I could think of why would change its brightness is it could be a pulsar, but unless it's rapidly changing, it's probably not a pulsar.
They're talking about
it could be a black
hole.
It's
not a change. It's that it has an overall dip of brightness by a substantial amount, right?
But does it cycle?
No. Well, maybe. I know that it's over time, the total brightness of the star has changed to such an extreme degree.
So that could be that there's a massive presence near the star. That's the most likely explanation.
That was one of the explanations they discounted. There's been a number of explanations that they've discounted.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, from my first standpoint, is I would say that there's some sort of massive presence near the star, which, because the massive presence would bend the way that the photons are traveling. So if it's like a black hole, then it's just gobbling up a bunch of the photons, and that would make it appear not so bright. It could be moving away from us, and but that would have to do with the red shifting and whatnot. So what did they actually find?
Observed image, blah blah blah, produced by fragments resulting from the disruption of an orphaned exomoon. An overall study of similar stars has been presented in January 2021. A distant stellar mass companion was reported, making Tabby Star a binary stellar system.
Okay.
But it was very interesting in the news because I kept on seeing all of the ufologists talking about it, and they're like, "Oh, it's proof of aliens," and
yeah,
these guys, that's one of those.
That's the thing. Like a lot of the people that are so hard up on aliens are basically making the same fallacious arguments as people do as proof for there being a god.
Right. I was gonna say something similar, but it's that problem that people have where they come to a conclusion rather getting a conclusion based on what the evidence says. Mm-hmm. Right? They already have the conclusion they want to reach, which is
another chicken and egg issue.
Another
chicken and egg issue. Are you motivated to arrive at that aliens or God conclusion, or are you being guided by the evidence and trying to sort out, because there's going to be tons of conflicting evidence? Are you trying to make sense of a data set?
One thing I kind of use as a marker is the whole, like, one of my guidelines for the maturity of a person is an immature person will take a stand first and then decide later what they want to question, whereas a mature person will question first and then decide later what they want to take a stand.
Dunning-Kruger.
Mm-hmm. You can look at that aspect as well.
I think I should start coming to conclusions before I question
I think you should start
stuff.
coming.
So that way I can.
I think Red's making a pass at you.
Seriously.
Woo!
I think Red's making a pass at you.
I just say shit like that all the time. It creates workplace issues.
Maybe we should all just buy what's his name's jump to conclusions, Matt.
I don't think so. That sounds like a bad investment.
It is a bad investment, but
just get a trampoline. That could be your jumping to conclusions trampoline.
whichever thing you land face first on, that's what your conclusion is.
Oh yeah. I think I'll just use my bowling ball and throw it onto the trampoline and see what it smashes.
My dad used to talk.
Whoever face it smashes in first is the conclusion of, this is what happens when you throw a bowling ball on a trampoline.
What were we going to say, Red?
No, just that my dad used to have a story about an alcoholic college professor who would go to his home and instead of grading papers would chuck them at his stairs, and depending on the position in the stair, that would determine the position in the bell curve.
That's great.
Right? So, that's like grading system based on alcoholism.
I had a
very
psychology
efficient
teacher tell us about a story from his time in college where they were able to get the professor to end the class half an hour early because the entire class participated in an experiment where they just slowly over the semester started picking up the bags earlier and earlier, so that way when the professor started hearing the picking up of bags, he would end the class.
Yeah, see, that wouldn't work on me. I always used to say my best student was the wall. Paid attention to everything I said. Everything I threw at it stuck too.
Well, hold up.
Like spaghetti.
The wall never pays attention, but it always listens.
If it's bugged.
Always listens.
Yeah, if it's bugged.
Greetings again to the NSA boys. Hope you're having a lovely evening.
Yeah, they're probably, I
don't know if they're
many of them are probably pleasuring themselves to Red's voice. Very few probably to my
baby.
voice.
Yeah.
I'm probably the least pleasurable voice here.
Yes. I believe you are right on that.
Well, hello.
I'll continue to talk like this for the rest of the episode.
Although apparently I have a very, very attractive morning voice just based on the way women have always seem to like calling me early in the morning when I'm half asleep.
Are you quite certain about that?
I'm making an educated guess.
I think your conclusion is wrong.
Well,
I just think people want to
Have you heard me when I first wake up?
I'm just saying.
Yeah, fuck him anyways. Not me though. But so, all right. Do we have anything else on the topic, or are we gonna end the episode a little early?
We could end the episode early, but I don't really think there's much else on the topic. I just find the whole concept of the.
Well, how about this? Let's, because we got a couple minutes left. Let's ask this question. How do you think? Let's start with Red on this one. How do you think it would change your perspective of the universe if there were, if you were actually able to interact with an alien sentient species?
How would it change my perception of the universe?
Mm-hmm.
I would doubt my perceptions and my questions would remain. I would still question whether this is an actual living experience or whether I am an avatar in some simulation.
Mm-hmm.
My questions would remain, but there would be far more interesting data inputs.
What about you?
My situation would be exactly the same. I'd still be trying to figure out how the hell do I pay off all this school debt and move on to the next stage where there's no school debt, but I can build up wealth. Although I have figured out how to build up wealth while paying off school debt.
What's your trick, Gregory?
Pokemon cards.
What?
Pokemon cards. You invest in Pokemon cards. It's a bad investment until it's a good investment.
See, that's what I'm trying to do with designing and 3D printing, but fucking 3D printer's not working.
Right? It's a bad investment until it's a good investment.
Well, Gregory, I've shown you my tubs full of comic books, man.
Did you get them appraised yet?
I don't want to go to the city yet. Just seems
No,
like such
I
a
wouldn't go to the
shithole.
city. The city's, I hear, an awful, awful place.
Shithole.
I hear it gets worse by the day.
Ugh, forget about it.
I love the city. To be honest, I was born.
Fuck the city.
I was born in the city. The city is awesome. I love my excursions to the city. One of my favorite art supply stores is in the city.
Which one?
It's called Da Vinci Art Supply.
Okay.
They used to have 2 stores, but they had to close one of them for
reasons.
Well, so for me,
I think it was a lack of profit. But
that's a reason.
For me, to answer my own question, my perspective would be, oh shit, more people to bother me.
That's what I'm saying. The existence of aliens doesn't change.
And then we'd have
much of anything.
And then we would have actual racism as opposed to the ethnicism that we have now.
Just had to bring it back.
I thought we were going to get through an episode without bringing up racism. I was about to be like, yay.
No, you
yay
can't
us.
you can't get through an episode of this.
No, we already talked about the Israeli-Palestinian thing.
That's not racism. That's just fuckery.
By the way, somebody pointed out earlier today in one of the videos I was watching that the word Palestine is a Roman word that means occupied.
Exactly,
really?
And in the Arab language,
so
there's no
Palestine
P sound either. It's that's why you hear Palestinians use the letter F, Palestine. It's not an original word, and the transliteration of Palestinian is the origin of Philistine, somebody who is an interloper lacking culture.
Yeah.
Is that why if you look back in history, the Palestinians were a nomadic race, a group of people, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, you had many in that regions were nomadic. I mean, even the Jews were nomadic. My Hungarian ancestors were the Magyar. They were nomadic.
Every group was nomadic until they settled.
Yeah, pretty much. And even.
So, what about the advice from your mom? Don't settle.
Well, we'll get to that one because speaking of settling in a relationship, so now our next so we probably won't be having a Thursday episode.
Aww.
We might have one on Monday. Red and I might just continue that episode from our last episode, the whole "You Shall Not," because Red expressed that she had a lot of fun doing that one.
Should phone me in on that.
We'll have you in on the phone?
Possibly.
That would be interesting. Maybe we'll do that. But either way, our next episode with...
don't forget to dial a friend.
Our next episode will be... this is actually one that Red requested, and it is going to be
Suggested.
Yeah,
I'm
whatever.
fully prepared to have my suggestions completely rejected.
So, well, our next main episode is going to be titled Shit Relations. So that's enough time for this episode. Make sure to check out our next episode. Or not. fuck you either way.
Remember?
I
What
changed
the fuck?
it.
You jerk, you! You're trying to throw me off.
Seeing how well you adapt.
Oh, you jerk. You remember to find us on Locals, BitChute, Minds, and Rumble to check out our alt-tech extras. And with that said, once again, I am Greg.
And I am Charles.
Remember to never question.
Never ask for proof.
And always believe what you're told by the news and politicians.
No matter what. Now go back to sleep, fuckers. Good night, fellow human. You'll wake up tomorrow to cause more destruction and bring much more sorrow. You'll go out and smile and pretend you are good. But once you get crossed, you'll don a black hood. You'll maim and you'll rend all while you pretend that you are some kind of hero. You can't face the truth and you'll stay aloof to the fact that you're a zero. You'll sit and stay glued to a spoon-feeding tube so that you can believe you're the best. You'll obey and be bribed by a campaigner's lies. All throughout the COVID Murder Fest. I hate you all.